So we've got about 15 minutes before I have to go get ready for budget negotiations, so I'm not going to give an opening statement. I'll just have y'all go straight into whatever's on your mind.
Do you mean the 2 p.m. meeting, or is there a pre?
No, the 2 p.m., just making sure our team's lined up, ready to go.
What do you expect to happen today?
I expect, they'll talk about taxes some more over there, but I think there's a lot of agreement we reached through our subcommittee process. A lot of things that the House was saying on Monday that they thought they had agreement on before, we'll probably see some agreement on that because it's gone through our process. And so I think we'll make pretty good progress today if the other sides are still where we think they are.
Is your caucus behind you on everything that you've approached up to this point?
Very firm foundation.
What happens if the governor and the speaker keep digging their heels in on the tax cut?
We're there to talk about budget. If they can show us where they're going to have to cut to make it up, but we're not doing another tax cut right now unless they can show us that we can afford it on a recurring revenue.
What's the likelihood of your caucus taking a vote, or the Senate taking a vote on that issue?
We took a vote on that issue to cut on a recurring basis $408 million out of our budget with the grocery tax. So we've already taken that vote. We took a 4-hour caucus right before that, and that doesn't even show the hours and weeks of meetings and cussing and discussing that led to that position in the first place.
You mentioned recurring revenue several times on Tuesday and again a moment ago. What are your concerns about recurring revenue for the next legislature?
You don't build a home budget based on bonuses you get or money left over in a sock drawer. You have to have real recurring income to be able to make recurring budget decisions. You don't go out and make a major purchase or investment without knowing you can pay for it in the long term. So that's, in the simplest terms, that's why we worry about it.
And what will be reducing recurring revenue in the coming fiscal years?
About 408 when it's fully realized on grocery tax. And then you have another 212.5 million that we know is going to come out next year based on the growth in the parental choice tax credit and some things we've used one-time monies for some recurring expenses in the past. And so that's a little over 200 million there. So you're at 600 million the totality of the grocery plus the 225.
On Monday you said, we have until May 31st to come up with a budget. Is that still your thoughts, or do you think that we could see a final negotiation today?
Oh, you won't see a final negotiation today. We'll still be here till May 31st. I think you'll see us make good faith progress today. But I do not anticipate walking out singing Kumbaya today.
Could you walk us backwards from the 31st timeline? Are you still, as last year, you wanted to have a built-in week to look at governor veto overrides if necessary? So that backs us up a week, and then with the JCAP process and the extra time and transparency there, that's a couple more days. And then your staff needs, they can't just snap their fingers and produce the bills. So help me with that timeline.
Well, first off, staff's worked pretty good miracles for me in the past, so that I have greater faith in my staff than you do. No, in all honesty, it will take them about a day and a half once we get to an agreement to write it, put it through the whole process and all of that. The only thing I would disagree on your backing up, it's much like a campaign timeline. You go to the date of the election and you back up. And the only thing I would take out of your equation is that week to override gubernatorial vetoes that you normally see us do. With the House's stance that they're not going to override gubernatorial vetoes, or at least that's my belief, that they will not override vetoes based on conversations I've had with them over the last few months, that's not as important this time.
Why?
Because if we don't have a willing dance partner to override even on a domestic violence bill about women who've been injured, we probably don't have the ability to override a line item that's less important than that.
Do you expect the governor to use a lot of line item stuff this time? And if he doesn't do that and instead vetoes a whole budget bill, what happens?
Well, this is his 6th budget. I think he's signed 1 or 2 of them. He's let one go into effect without his signature, and then he's vetoed 2, and we've overridden them. That I may be off 1 or 2 in recounting, but it's somewhere in that ballpark. We typically have had the backstop of the House if we've agreed to a deal that they're willing to override. If it truly is the Speaker's stance, which I've been told it is, that he won't override, then we don't have the ability to override on that. If he line items, it's a veto, and that's on, if it's a really important project, that's on them and him and the House, because we'd be willing to override almost anything.
The governor signed the bill to close the loopholes in the parental choice school tax credit program. Do you have a comment on that?
I appreciate him signing it. It's been a work in progress between myself and the Speaker and advocates and educators over the last, well, really since we passed the bill. And so appreciate his support there and appreciate him signing it.
Does it give the tax commission more accountability in that program?
Yeah, it gives more clarity on some things that we thought were pretty common sense, but they weren't written as specifically as they needed to, like not being able to pay off tax debts and that type of stuff. But it also opens up new opportunities for the poorest among us to be able to take advantage of that tax credit through, if you're serving homeless children or a school that's dedicated to serving the most underprivileged. So I'm excited that we're pushing it even more to those who can least afford it.
Are there any other tax credits where you can get a tax credit but still be delinquent on your taxes?
Yeah, you could still be delinquent on your taxes and your kid wouldn't be punished and not be able to use that for the school. Just like you probably heard me on the floor ad infinitum, but when my colleagues from the other side have asked that similar type of question, we don't tell a child they can't go to public school because their parents behind on taxes. We're not going to tell a child in need that they can't go to a private school that meets their needs based on their parents' lack of compliance.
I know you're expecting to hear the House talk about tax cuts today. Is there a main priority that you are hoping to get across today or in the future of negotiations?
A sustainable budget and a commitment to transparency, and we've achieved a lot on transparency, and I know probably get made fun of because I use transparency so much, but I'm not just dedicated in word, I'm dedicated in deed, and I hope that that we will get a long-term change in the way we do the budget process, so we're staying the course. But as far as do I have any projects that I'm dead set that must happen, no, I had two priorities coming into the session. One, get the car tag bill passed. I appreciate the governor signing that and the House acting on it with respect and pretty swiftly. And then the other is budget transparency. And so we're trying to make sure we see that all the way through to the end.
On Wednesday, the Oklahoma City Police Chief said that he fears this immigration law that was just signed into law could lead to racial profiling and views it as tough to enforce. Does that concern you?
You know, we saw the same type of comments. I respect Chief Gorley immensely. He's a tremendous chief, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen. I think there's case law and U.S. constitutional protections in that arena. If we see law enforcement perverting the intent of that, that will be problematic. I think the Attorney General gave some good guidance. I hope law enforcement takes it. But I respect Chief Gorley and think he's coming at it from a real point of concern, but I don't share that same concern.
We have time for a couple more. Ask you about the subcommittees over the last couple of days. I mean, there was a lot of thorough discussion. There were, some, you know, the airport question got answered in advance. Apparently, there was some kind of consternation a little bit on the OU 160 million. Maybe you can explain a little bit. But one thing I remember hearing, and the House I think made a video and sent it around of the DPS project question. And I think Chairman Howard said, you know, our charge was to ask questions but not make a decision today in the subcommittee. I was a little tired yesterday. I don't think they said anything in full A&B about it. So where's your position? It sounds like that's the sort of thing that you and other members of your leadership team are still deciding. So where do we start?
Yeah, we're still deciding. That's a House position to be able to do the quote-unquote phase 2 of that. I think phase 1, they haven't spent a lot of those monies yet, and so we're trying to look to see, have they been, not good stewards, because I don't think they would squander those monies, but have those monies been utilized yet as phase 2? Is it the right time to do it yet? Is the question still pending?
I know your floor leader doesn't generally like the project as a whole, and so do you share that concern about impact on fleet and things like that?
You know, I hear the concern and respect my floor leader immensely, and we'll make sure that we don't adversely impact, you know, an ongoing expense, and we don't want to be duplicative. I have no stake in it other than just wanting to make sure it's done fairly.
After the latest swath of tornadoes, did you think you guys still have enough money in emergency management? Or you
That-
come back?
That's a question for the governor. I think I'm not much of a blank check type of guy, but whatever he tells us they need there, we will answer that call. 45 million is the number that got put out on the table on Monday. If the tornado that impacted Bartlesville and Barnesdall and northeast Oklahoma this week causes that number to go up, we'll be ready to answer that.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.